everyone. Welcome to the Kulturecast. I'm Chris Stashew, and I am joined by not only one of my close friends, but also an award-winning screenwriter, Jess Byard.
Hello, Chris. I think that it's funny that you put in this specific intro that I'm one of your close friends, because... Why
would you do this to your close friend?
I feel like you're trying to save face now.
Oh, right? And that's not the case, because... It's sincere, but at the same time, I almost, I honest to God kind of feel bad, but at the same time, in my defense, I had never seen it either.
Hey, this is the risk we run.
Exactly. So the thing is unlike sometimes when you're like, oh, watch this movie and you don't tell anyone about it, and you're like, I know this movie's going to be just a complete nightmare to get through. You're doing it out of some sort of sick satisfaction of getting someone to watch something. This, I was like, you know what, let's watch this movie and see what it's like, and we both paid the proverbial price.
Yeah, and I mean, part of that is because I didn't really look into it before I watched it, because I like to go into things as fresh as possible, and since I didn't know really anything about this, and it seemed a really off-the-wall concept anyway, I was like, okay, fine, I'll just go in blank. So, I didn't really look anything up or any reviews or anything. Had I would have known more so what I was getting into, but...
So, if you've never seen, which I would assume no one who's listening to this, unless you're listening to this because no one else has done a podcast on it, which is pretty much the case, we are continuing Body Horror July with a look at the directorial debut from Flying Lotus, a.k.a. Captain Murphy, a.k.a. Steve, a.k.a. just use your goddamn name, pick one please, Kuso.
I love this earthquake. It was the best one I ever seen. All my enemies are dead.
Hello, dispatch.
I know you're awake. An hour and a half is a real long time. I don't think I can stick around for that long.
You know you want it. You know.
That's that doo-doo.
I hate this movie.
So, the film is directed by Flying Lotus. It is written by Flying Lotus, David Firth, and Zach Fox. It stars the more notable folks, Anders Holm, Shane Carpenter, and Tim Heidecker. And the synopsis for the film, as kind of milquetoast and mundane as it is events unfold after a devastating earthquake in Los Angeles.
Which is timely.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. This film came out in 2017. It is exclusively on Shudder, a platform that the two of us are huge fans of. We talk we speak its praises constantly, especially with Joe Bob Briggs, some of their other more,
they give a lot of chances. And this is an example. And,
they sure did.
You can't win them all.
So let me ask you, what did you think of Kuso watching it for the first time?
What did I think?
I'm sorry. That's a really open-ended question, isn't it?
Yeah. So, like I said, I didn't look anything up. I had no idea what I was going into. So, I mean, honestly...
all you knew was going to be body horror. That's all I knew.
Yes,
that's all you knew, really.
Body horror means a lot of different things. And... so basically 6 minutes into this, so the aftermath of this earthquake is not like destruction and rubble and, broken bones and things like that. It's, I guess, caused some weird outbreak or radioactivity or something that's causing weird mutations to people. And the aftermath's told through a series of loosely connected vignettes.
That are broken, but they're broken up though. It's It's not just like a story and then another story. It's like story, another story, first story, second story.
Like it's loosely intertwined.
Sure.
And 6 minutes into this movie, and I mean, we're just gonna have to I'm just gonna go there immediately because this movie goes there immediately. 6 minutes into this movie is two people who I believe are brother and sister. I think.
Jesus, is that what they are?
I think so, like based on because I read some reviews and things after I watched it, and somebody said it was an incestuous relationship.
Jesus fucking
potentially
Christ.
an incestuous relationship, and they're having sex, and he comes and then he puts it on her face and they make out, and that's 6 minutes into the movie.
But don't forget, he's also being strangled from behind by her.
Yes, there's also that. They also have like mutated weird herpes lips,
but so does everyone else in the movie. Like that.
Yes,
that is
that's
actually
what's happened.
Yeah.
And that's just where it goes from there. And I mean, yes, there's that storyline, like that just through line that sort of holds it all together. But no, this movie is terrible. Like this movie is bad.
Boy.
It's just, and I hate saying that, I do, because I will say the only real positive things that I can say about it is that I am a fan of David Firth outside of this movie. I mean,
you're a fan of weird shit outside of this movie, as I am.
I was in high school when Salad Fingers was like a thing to watch at the time, and I got into it. And there is a lot of his animation that really does bother me and that I don't like to watch. So I knew kind of at least going into that I was going to see some weird, there's a lot of stuff to deal with cockroaches and insects and really just unsettling things, and he incorporates that into most of his work. So I kind of was expecting a little bit of that, and that's really the positive stuff I could say, because his art is interesting. His animation is very interesting, and that I can kind of like enjoy outside of the movie. And I think that there are a few things like here and there's like a couple lines occasionally that like I maybe kind of had a chuckle, but other than that there was nothing. This movie is just, it's gross. And regardless of what Flying Lotus says in his interviews, I don't see that there's anything really underneath the, gross out visuals. And when I say gross out, I'm speaking like very much bodily fluids and shit. And there's basically, if you want to watch people puke and like cum for an hour and a half, this is the movie you can watch.
Yeah, there's puke and pus and cum and shit and like green goo coming out of a monster that's up George Clinton's asshole.
Mm-hmm.
So look, like you said, I'm a fan of David Lynch, weird things in general, weird films, shock films to some extent. I mean, I watched Faces of Death when I was in college with my friends just to freak them out. I mean, Faces of Death ended up...
Fallow.
Yeah, all these kind of shock cinema. And we did a whole month. We did a Serbian film. I would rather watch a Serbian film than this movie again. Because a Serbian film at least has a narrative structure to it. Is it subversive and disgusting? Yeah, sure. But at the same time, at least there's a narrative structure, and at least I feel like in a Serbian film, while it might be a stretch, I do feel like the director of the film is trying to say something. Mm-hmm. In this film, it has no narrative structure. And Flying Lotus himself said it in an interview with Build Series on YouTube, that it's a confrontational film. Confrontational in what respect? You're confronting me with the grossness of ugliness, like it feels
basically
like
just wants people to say, ew, it's gross and I hate it, so he can turn around and say shit like this, where it's like there's a lot of shit in the film that hasn't been talked about, and a lot of things that I think should be discussed as well. There's still a lot of artistry.
Bugs coming out of people's assholes, right?
Overlooked. And then the writer says, when I asked him, what he didn't want to be overlooked, he said he pretty much just flipped the question and asked the writer what he thought the movie was about. So it's like, it's bullshit. You don't mean anything really behind this movie. Maybe you had like a thought and that spawned from something, but whatever you did, all of this like crap, literal shit that you put over top of what tiny message you might have had in there is just entirely overshadowed. It's just gross out after gross out after gross out, and it becomes boring.
I love gross out movies. I really do. The Fly, Videodrome, but it's gross out with a purpose. And that's the thing. Look, last the last episode, we talked about antiviral, and Mike and I had a very in-depth conversation about it, and one of the things we both came to the conclusion of is there's not enough body horror in that movie. I should have kept my mouth shut, because in this movie there's so much of it that it's unnecessary, and it's not even body horror. It's less body horror and just like gross out. And in that interview with Build Series, the interviewer, who is also terrible, says, I haven't seen anything like this since Meet the Feebles. And like Peter Jackson's early work, again, you are taking Peter Jackson's early work, Dead Alive, which is a great example of gross out horror, and comparing it to this, like you're putting those in the same conversation. Yeah. And Meet the Feebles, which less people have seen, but still same vein. It's like, what are you doing? This movie is just a weird...
he just did... And I mean, it's not so much a movie as like a weird mixed media visual art piece / music video, because let's not forget, I mean, he is Flying Lotus, his main thing is music, so there is a lot of that kind of style behind this, but it's just ugly to look at. Like, yeah, it's all gross material, it's just not shot particularly interestingly or well, or it just is unpleasant to look at the entire time.
It's also poorly lit.
Oh yeah, like it honestly just looks like all the sets are just set up like in somebody's shed. Like
it's really poorly lit. I really hate films that are poorly lit. And I mean, I know you and I both watched the last season of Game of Thrones, and they had that episode at the what the fuck, Winterfell, and it's like, it's meant to be shot that way. People just don't know how to tune their TVs. It's like, look, I don't give a fuck what your excuse is, but you need to light stuff so that people can enjoy what they're seeing. And in this film, it's that same nonsense where it's like you didn't light it at all. And I can't tell what's going on half the time anyways. And frankly, I'm glad, because...
Yes, this is a situation where poor lighting is a blessing.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of physical effects too. So everybody knows when it's dark, you can cover up the cheapness of your effects by it being dark, both CGI and practical effects. And that's the one thing I'll give the film credit. There is a lot of practical effects, but okay.
Yeah, it's there. That's great, but that doesn't make it interesting. Like, you're not using them. You're just using them in the most disgusting way you could possibly think of, and I don't want to watch that for an hour and a half. It gets boring and tedious and aggravating after a while, because it's just, like you said, you can barely see what's going on half the time. I don't know what anybody's talking about 90% of the time.
So there are four, let's kind of just go, let's talk about the four parts of the film. There's four beats. There's Royal, which is about I'm not even going to make this shit up. Like, if you want to watch the movie, go right ahead. But there is one of the segments is called Royal. It is about, like we talked about, the two lovers, the incestuous, possibly lovers, in an apartment, and there's a kind of a human. It's a human boil. It's like a boil that's living on the woman lover, and the guy fucks the boil, and that's the end of the film. That's how the film ends. Is a guy coming inside of a sentient boil's mouth. Awesome.
That's voiced by David Firth.
Right.
And if you are familiar with Salad Fingers, it very much does sound like Salad Fingers, which is kind of strange.
And that one is written solely by Flying Lotus. Then there's Mr. Quiggle, which I would contend is the best segment in the film.
I don't even really... That's the one that I know the least of what's going on in.
There's a rapper who gets raped by Tim Heidecker, who comes out of a toilet, and she goes to get a coat hanger abortion. Great. Great. And then there's
But the George Clinton part I don't quite get.
I mean, you just don't get it, okay? It's over your head.
It's just too above me.
We're just dum-dums, okay? And so, like we mentioned before, there is a bug that comes out of George Clinton's asshole that lives inside of his butt, and it helps people overcome their fears and also give women coat hanger abortions. That one is written by Flying Lotus and Zach Fox. Then you have Smear, which is written solely by Flying Lotus. That stars Shane Carpenter as a small man who goes to school and finds an asshole monster with a tongue, and he feeds it poop. And okay, sure. Mm-hmm. And then the last one is, and that one's written, and that one is written solely by, again, Flying Lotus. And then the final bit is Sock, which is written by Steven Ellison and David Firth, who you've mentioned of Salad Fingers fame, and that is about a woman crawling through a hole underground, and she eats concrete and cockroaches.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense that's the one that David Firth helped write, because it's scary. And you know what? If you want to give this movie anything, is some of it, like that particular sequence, is scary. Like it's creepy, it's unsettling, is horrific to watch. So yes, I guess there you go. There's something about it
I mean, I think I texted you and I was like, she's eating concrete. This is fucking awful.
Yeah. And then she's eating cockroaches, and it's just not, ooh, ugh.
This is one of those movies where, we talked about it before we recorded our Child's Play podcast, how you were like, this is a fucking gross movie, you're going to be grossed out by it. And all I could think to myself was like, I'm probably going to text you half the time I'm watching this movie. Because I honestly couldn't believe some of the stuff that was happening.
Yeah.
And it's the truth. I can't believe some of the things that they did in this movie.
There's a few movies that I've seen in the past few years. There's at the Nightmares Film Festival 2 or 3 years ago now, I saw 2 movies, and they're super late night movies, and they were called Night of Something Strange and Night of the Virgin. Night of Something Strange is like a, I think, Canadian or American movie, and it's about these teenagers who go stay at the seedy motel, and some weird sort of zombie-ish plague happens, but it makes everybody just really horny, and it's got a lot of that, really gross out effects, and pretty much in the same vein, but not as, it's a very straightforward story. What's going on, but it's still that same really grossness. And then Night of the Virgin is it's Spanish movie, I believe, and it's about this guy on New Year's Eve who goes home with this lady who turns out to not be, like a lady, she's some witch or something, and then it's just a bunch of weird gross sex stuff and gross birth stuff and shit, and it that's what those 2 movies sort of came back to me when I was watching this, and I'm like, I didn't like those movies either, and I know that there is a market for that, obviously, and I am just not that market, so maybe it's, I'm not watching it with the right kind of eyes, but honestly, I don't think in this particular movie, I don't think we're too wrong here. It's just there's nothing to it aside from this grossness.
Well, and here's the thing. And look, you're involved in the industry on a first-hand level because you've actually written, and you've written short films, you've written films, you are involved in the industry. Unlike myself, I am involved in this podcasting movie review sidebar to the industry. So I know and I understand how hard it is to get a film made, and I appreciate that it is not easy to get a film made. However, while that is great, while I do appreciate it, while it is something that I do commend Flying Lotus for being able to do and doing it on his own terms, that is impressive, and I am impressed, and I give him all of the credit in the world for making the film he clearly wanted to make. At the same time, it is so...
Not all films need made.
No, exactly. It's weird for weird's sake, and I've seen some things calling it a true midnight movie. You can't just call weird movies true midnight movies, because that's not how it works.
No, I mean, midnight movies have to be an organic thing. That's
right, like Rocky Horror or
if you're trying to
any
make a midnight movie, you fail. If you're trying to make a B movie
or a viral video,
whatever, you fail.
You can't,
or a viral, you fail.
Yeah, you can't make a viral.
Works. It has to have.
You can't make a viral video.
A lot of what goes behind midnight movies and cult movies and movies that gain followings like that is that there's something that people can connect to somewhere, a level of ambition and a level of I don't know. There's just something that someone can connect to, and for me, I don't see there's nothing in this movie I can connect to at all.
Well, yeah,
I don't know if I want to know a person who can connect to some of the stuff that's in this movie.
No, I completely agree. I mean, look, when I fell in love with Rocky Horror Picture Show, it's because I related to the film, and it was something that I saw it at the right time. And it had the right sort of meaning for me. And then you look at something like this, and it's like, oh, MTV News said that this is a true midnight movie, and it's the grossest movie ever made. And it's like, okay, first off, I'll give it as a gross movie. Is it the grossest movie ever made? I mean, if that's what you were going for and that was the sole purpose.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close to like the grossest movie I've ever seen, but I don't. There's a few. I would probably put Night of the Virgin a little higher on that list than this, but not much higher.
My point is, like, the whole point of this movie was to be gross. But the problem is because it's so gross, it has nothing else, right? That's all it has. It's just, it's gross.
Yeah, that's it. That's all that's there. And I mean, there may be some people, if you can find some other kind of meaning in this movie, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please tweet them at me. That'd be great.
Or me, or anyone, or Flying Lotus. Let us know what are we missing here?
Yes. What are these two people who deem our opinions worthy enough to record?
What? Yeah, exactly. Look, I know I have a pretty good head on my shoulders about film, and I know that you do as well, and you would agree. And it's just, like you said, I found it hard to find any meaning in this film, and I think most people aren't even going to watch this.
No. And I mean, the only place you can really watch it is Shudder.
Well, and if they do watch it, they're going to walk away the same way we did, which is like, okay.
Which, I mean, you were like, I just want this to be over, and I was like, I'm going to fast forward through 15 minutes. Okay, no, I'll watch. And then I went back and watched those 15 minutes because I felt guilty. It's like, no, I'll watch the whole thing. And then the whole last 15 minutes of the movie is that guy fucking the weird...
Sentient Boyle.
Whatever that is. Sentient Boyle.
It's the worst part of the entire goddamn movie.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
For literally 10 minutes and in graphic detail, and just there's nothing enjoyable about this movie. There's nothing relatable about this movie. There's just it's great that, like you said, clearly, you know, like in this interview, he's talking about how he expected to have more help while making this movie, both financially and just like the actual production, which, yeah, that's kind of how every movie goes. So welcome to the club. But he talks about how, you know, like he did it, and then that's great. Like you said, awesome. He made the movie he wanted to make. That's awesome. Good for him, I guess. But it is not a movie for me. I don't know who is a movie for. And like I said, if it is your movie, please, please, please let us all know, because I need to know why you enjoy this movie.
I completely agree. So let's talk a little bit about that interview, because I think, you know, it does kind of show Flying Lotus kind of it gives a little bit of an interesting insight into the film itself. So like we've already mentioned, he talks about, you know, the film is to show people how ugly they can be. Sure. Okay. Direct quote from him. He also said in another interview that this is a direct quote from him. This was, I believe, an MTV News interview. He said he's tired of black filmmakers not taking chances. Sure.
Well, I mean, that's his...
It's an opinion,
I guess.
Sure. That is an opinion you can have.
He's maybe watching the wrong directors, but okay.
I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't even know who's that in reference to. Yeah,
take chances in what way? Like, what way is this movie, like, saying anything in a more, you know, concrete and...
He's talking about the black filmmakers aren't making movies where people fuck boils.
Right.
That's what it is.
Because that's what everyone needs to be talking about.
Right. We just don't get it, okay?
Yeah, got his hand on the pulse of America here.
Yeah. He's got his finger up his own ass is what he does. Look, I don't like railing against movies any more than you do. It's not fun. And, you know, it's not fun to hate on something
it's not fun to watch them.
Well, it's not fun to watch them, but it's also not fun to hate on something that someone spent time and effort to make.
Right.
Because look, you didn't make it for me, clearly, but like you said, I'd like to know who he made it for, who connects with this movie. But at the same time, like, if you put a movie out there, you are essentially saying, please tell me what you think of it.
Right.
And so we're not obligated to give you our opinion, but at the same time, I watched it, so I'm allowed to have an opinion.
You might not be asking for an opinion, but you have to concede that there will be opinions.
Right, because you've made something and you didn't just keep it on your computer for yourself. You released it. And now people can watch it on Shudder, or like with your short that you made, people are going to watch it and give their opinion on it. And you knew that when you did it. I mean, you can't get around it. If you want people to see something, you have to put it out there and see what happens. And, you know, not everything is going to be Stranger Things or I don't know, Fruitvale Station, which got Ryan Coogler noticed. It's not going to be anything like that where, people are like clamoring to have you involved in the next project. Some things are just going to be this weird little film that you made. And look, he made a weird little film. John Watts, who made Clown, a film that was essentially a trailer about a guy in a clown costume that got, of all people who I know neither one of us like, Eli Roth's attention. He made the last 2 Spider-Man movies, okay? So it's not outside of the realm of possibility that you will get noticed by people for making things that are weird. But I think when you make something this weird and this out there and this kind of, I would say, obtuse.
Like, it's amazing that he sold this.
Right?
Like, this is unsellable. If Shudder didn't exist, pre-2015 in the era of, like, niche streaming, this movie is unsellable. Like, there's no way anybody would have picked this up for anything. So this is sort of like a time for people to, if you're going to make something, if you're going to make whatever movie it is that you want to make and want to be really true to that. And if you end up with something like this strange or in a different level, whatever, it's a lot easier to get that shit out there now. But again, that just comes with more opinions.
Look, I mean, this is his vanity piece. This is something he clearly always wanted to make. I get it. But at the same time, it is so bizarre and so out there. And like we said, I mean, look, I love David Lynch, so do you. You have a Twin Peaks obsession as much as I do. And I love the show. I love everything that David Lynch has done. Eraserhead is weird, but
there's story behind that. There's something to that. The weirdness is, and even still David Lynch is totally open to being like, I'm not really trying to say exactly something with my work, and that for that exact reason, I'm not going to elaborate on anything I do because it's up for interpretation. But I feel like with this movie, with Kuso and Flying Lotus, he wants you to like find some deep meaning in there.
Yeah, and like if you don't, you just don't get it, bro.
Right?
Like,
yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, just because it's weird and just because it's a movie doesn't make it like art and doesn't make it depthy.
So let's play along for a second, okay? Let's play along. Let's say that Flying Lotus has a point. We need to take his film and let's truly find a meaning in the film. If we could extrapolate even a modicum of meaning in this film, I'm kicking it to you first because I'm curious. What would you even begin to assume that the meaning of the film is?
I mean, I don't. If I had not read, I mean, what I'm inclined to say is what I read.
Well, that's as fair as anything else.
Which is that, it's telling, it's a commentary on being black in America and being weird in America.
Okay.
And
isn't that feel like the biggest cop-out?
Yes, exactly. It's a huge cop-out answer. And for me, and like I said, I have no idea what this movie's about. I don't know. It's just a weird story about all these terrible mutated people that live in LA after an earthquake and weird gross shit happens to them and then it ends. Like that is what the movie is to me. There's nothing else under that I can find.
And that's the thing about this movie. For me, when I think about what I would interpret as the theme of the film, it's just, people do what it takes to survive. But even then, like, that feels like such a cop-out of an answer. But, everyone in the film is doing something to survive, be it fucking a boil, be it trying to keep themselves alive after getting raped by Tim Heidecker, trying to get over their fear of breasts. I mean, that's the base idea of the film, is people trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic world. But like this, if that's all it is, why do it in a way that's so strange and bizarre? Because
it's a really boring way to do it. And so you need to throw in something. Because it's just a vague through line of a story to hold it together of like, okay, it's just all of these people having to deal with the aftermath of this crazy earthquake that's done this to them. Okay, and and then they just live through it and weird shit happens to them. Okay, and we never get past that. We never get to another this happened, so this happens. It's all this happened and then this happened and now we're here and that's just how it is. Watch these people do these things.
Well, and the other thing is there's like interstitials where there's just like random things happening. I would equate it to like Lawnmower Man sequences almost. It's like that intentionally bad CGI. Then you have the bus driver, what's his name? Regan Farquhar, I think is his name. That's like a character that he does outside of this film. That's like a thing. So he does his character in the film that's kind of like spoken word, slam poetry, trying to, again, I think, have a message. I mean, look, you say enough fucking words over and over again, sing-songy, slam poetry style, you're gonna have someone read into it and be like, yes, yes, there's meaning here. But at the same time, like, I genuinely believe, after seeing the interviews that you mentioned, after reading some of the other stuff, that I honestly believe Flying Lotus just made this movie just to be like, I can make something fucking weird and no one can do anything about it.
Well, and I mean, honestly, like...
Which is fine.
We're not in the minority. Like, looking at reviews and stuff, like, all the reviews are, like he said, talking about that title of grossest movie ever made. And they're all pretty much saying that's pretty much what this movie is. And the only very few positive reviews I found, like on Vox, was very vague and basically didn't even say what it necessarily liked about the movie. It was just kind of saying what the movie was, and then 3 stars, I guess.
Well, and like we said, I give it a positive. It's got really great practical effects.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And I mean, it has great practical effects. I like David Firth's animation. There was that sequence with Tim Heidecker, minus Tim Heidecker, the two like fuzzy guys that are there. Had a couple moments that, like, you know, I thought this could be something, you know, this potentially could be a funnier storyline with these guys, but it never goes, you know, it takes anything that is remotely interesting about that and just expands it the second Tim Heidecker appears. So
it really feels like look, I love subversive humor. The Eric Andre show is amazing. I absolutely love it, both sober and high out of my mind. I'm one of the few people in my friend group that genuinely likes Tim and Eric Awesome Show. Great job, because again, it is anti-humor. It is subversive comedy. This feels like those forms of entertainment, but just they never got the point of how to make it correctly. Right. And then you have Tim Heidecker in it, and it's like, whoa, like he's actually in this too, on top of everything else.
And doing these things.
Yeah.
Like, willingly, and he's in it, like, he's doing heinous, weird-ass things.
Like his Full Frontal fucking like a weird organic sex toy thing. It's just, it's super weird, and it's upsetting, and it's not great, and it's just bizarre. And you've got, I mean, again, another connection to Eric Andre, you've got Hannibal Buress playing one of the aliens in the female rapper's apartment. I mean, there's a lot of connections to these subversive styles of humor. I mean, like you said already, David Firth, Salad Fingers, which I had never seen Salad Fingers until watching this movie. Totally not my bag of entertainment.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, and I love stuff like that. It's just,
I like that, and I don't like this. Like,
no, sure, I get it. You know, and that's probably the weirder part for me, is that you like things like Salad Fingers, but this
not
is
all
like
things, but some things.
Yeah, and like that's,
I don't know, weird. It hits me in a different way. Like the animation that's in this, and especially he does a lot of stuff with roaches in this, which that's also a big thing. He has a series of cartoons that's like of animations that's about this boy, and he lives with his grandma, and in the first episode his grandma is killed by these giant roach guys that like keep him as a slave, and it's really fucking weird and creepy, and I don't like that one. I can't watch that one. But Salad Fingers I enjoy. There's a couple other ones, but yeah, no, it's so my threshold, you know, my threshold for weird is pretty high, but just this is not. There needs to be some kind of interesting story or character or something that grabs my attention, because other than gross out, oh my god, look at this, shock, every scene.
It's unrelenting. And look, I mean, you mentioned Salad Fingers and David Firth. I'm assuming maybe you haven't, but I mean, you're around my age. You've seen Don Hertzfeld's Rejected.
Yes.
My Spoon's Too Big, all that. I mean, that's what Salad Fingers reminds me of.
Yeah, but a couple steps creepier.
Right, but also a couple steps more in the direction of like actually funny. It's more humor than just subversive weirdness.
Yes, exactly.
And like that, this film's trying to be funny. And
it's also surrealist, and that's fine, and I enjoy surrealism, but it's trying to be surrealist, and that's...
You don't try surrealism, it just happens.
Right.
Yeah. And you know, in that interview with Build, he goes, one of the people in the audience asks Flying Lotus, he's like, who would you want to collaborate with in film or music? And he says he'd love to work with Charlie Kaufman. And I genuinely don't believe Charlie Kaufman. Like, what are you talking about?
That'd be so weird.
Like, Charlie Kaufman would not have anything to do with you. Like,
that'd be so fucking weird if he did, though.
Right, but like Charlie Kaufman would watch this movie and be like, I think you think one thing about the things that I make. And those are not... Yeah, maybe you're wrong.
There's a misinterpretation here.
Yeah. And look, again, Flying Lotus, he talks about After Effects and, you becoming learned in After Effects and all that stuff. And look, like I said, I don't want to dissuade someone from making another film. Maybe this is just a first misstep as a directorial debut, but I can't but help feel like maybe just stick to music and make music videos that are subversive and weird and not try to create an entire hour and a half
it's too much.
Loosely narrative piece.
It's way too much, yeah. And that's the thing. Like, if you want to do vignettes, then you should have released them on like a web series in vignette form. But putting them in an hour and a half,
it's too much.
Movie is just too much, yeah.
And Aphex Twin is involved with this, and Aphex Twin has some really weird and subversive music videos as well. But again, there's a point to it. There is there is some substance to it, and I walked away from this film feeling like I just watched something that was weird for weird's sake, and I'm not going to sit and be told, oh, there's some deep secret meaning to it, because I don't think there is. Yeah,
no.
In a film where a boil sucks a dude's dick, which I'm not sure if that was an
5 minutes.
I'm not sure if that was an actual dick or a prosthetic penis, and either way it's upsetting.
I think it was a prosthetic.
I hope so. But again, I would not be surprised if they were like, let's really do something crazy here. Like, oh no, please no. It's just it's not for me. It's really not for me.
Nope, not for me either.
So what would you give the film? Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we're good.
I think we're just take this one, take it out back like Old Yeller, and just... what would you give the film out of 5? Man. You can give it a 0.
I know, but...
I like that. I know I can't.
I give it like a half a star.
Ooh.
A half a star for the few things I mentioned that were somewhat enjoyable. Somewhat.
Yeah, I'll give it 1. Because again, I can't take away from the fact that, look, I am just a podcaster sitting here giving you my opinion, and he makes fucking music for a living. And he made a movie, and this is the movie he wanted to make. And as much as I've always said that about other things, I'm not defending The Phantom Menace when I say it, but George Lucas made the movie he wanted to make, that's for sure. You have to give him a little bit of credit for that, because I can't just go out and make a movie. And I mean, I could, but I wouldn't get it on Shudder any more than most people could. So he got to get his film on Shudder. He made a film that has, Hannibal Buress and Tim Heidecker and George Clinton in it. It's got the music of Aphex Twin. So those are technically impressive things. However, other than maybe the practical effects being impressive, there ain't much here.
Right.
And that's why I walk away saying, it's a 1 out of 5, and I'm not willing to go any higher than that. And I think I'm being even more generous than you were.
Yes. Yeah, because I'm giving a half star for sure, because... I
mean, I'm not going to watch it again. And if someone I know is like, should I watch it? I'll be like, no.
I was going to say, like, on a scale of, 1 to divorce, how much trouble would you have been in if you watched that with her?
Oh, with Kate? Oh, yeah. No. I mean, look, I've watched films with my wife that Mike White has suggested for Mike White March, and those have been films where she's like, the fuck do your friends like watching? Or the fuck do your friends want you to watch for podcasting? And like, this is like stuff that's like so subversive and bizarre, I would feel bad showing it to her.
Right.
What about your husband? What do you think your husband would have said if he had walked in on you watching this? Or you had put it on?
Like, what the fuck are you watching? Oh my God, just like that would have been exactly what he would have said. And I told him about what it was, and he was like, yeah, no, that sounds fucking terrible. And I'm glad you didn't make me watch it. So
sounds fucking terrible, and shockingly it is.
Yep.
So let's take a break and we'll play a preview for the next Kulturecast.
Andy, I know this move has been really tough, but this was supposed to be a new start for us, remember? You said you were gonna try to make new friends.
Buddy can connect to and control all of your Caslin products and smart home devices. Introducing your new best friend.
Mom, I need to tell you something, and I need you to believe me. I think Chucky did something.
Andy, if you know something, you better tell me.
Something's wrong with Chucky.
Buddy can connect to and control all of your Caslin products.
Chucky is a toy.
He could be anywhere.
Welcome to Caslin Cars.
We have to stop him.
Good night, Andy.
So that's right, on the next Kulturecast, I'm actually joined by you once again, and we are talking about the remake of the 80s horror classic, Child's Play. And you know what? As spoilers, not great as that movie is, honestly, it feels like a fucking 5-star perfect film compared to this. Really puts it in perspective, doesn't it?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, Child's Play wasn't that bad now, was it?
Well, and that's why I gave it a half a star, because I gave Child's Play 2.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, but she gave Child's Play a 2.
But and if you go on Letterboxd, you can see it anyway. But I gave it a 2, so when I'm thinking like Kuso, I'm like, if I give it 1, that's just 1 star away from check-in. I didn't hate Child's Play that much. Like,
yeah, no, I completely agree. So
yeah, half star.
So until then, where can people find you, Jess?
You can find me on Twitter at writer Jess Byard. I guess you can also find me at Letterboxd.
You've been talking about it an awful lot.
I know. I've been using it more these days. So, which is a different name because evidently when you sign up on Letterboxd, you can't change your name ever unless you go for their paid part. So it's my maiden last name, but it's J.L. Hicks on Letterboxd. But it's also connected to my Twitter, so anything I post on there goes to Twitter.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm. It's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I should go on Letterboxd and update it. I'm like, and update it with every movie I watch in a year, which is like, yeah, right, yeah.
That's why I do it.
I know. Well, no, I mean, I should get
way more than I do in a year.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's more just like it. That feels just thinking about it right now feels insurmountable. But I probably should just
start on a fresh year or a fresh month.
Exactly. Start with Kuso, folks.
There
Yikes.
you go. No, please don't watch this movie. Please don't watch this movie.
Yeah, like if you're okay, that's the other thing. And again, this is a kind of a plug for something that we're not sponsored by. If you're on Shudder and you're thinking about watching this, watch something else.
Yes, they have a ton of great shit on
Just
Shudder.
watch the last drive. Watch the last drive-in, for fuck's sake.
Yep.
Anything, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. What would you suggest? Something on Shudder other than this, please. Just anything.
Other than this,
yeah.
Oh man, yeah. Any Joe Bob Briggs anything is great. If you want like body horror, he's got a couple Cronenbergs. I'm pretty sure he did. But also, if you want something. Like, just like a really good, here's a good body horror, and it's a television series. It's a first season, and that would be the first season of Channel Zero. And I guess it's not, like, entirely body horror, but that little tooth kid freaks me the fuck out.
Oh, yeah, it's body horror enough. Yeah, and just anything but Kuso. Watch anything else. Watch the history of black horror cinema. I mean, just watch some, if you don't want to watch something that's like a movie, watch like a documentary or something, just anything other than this, because this is really just... Not great. You can find me on Twitter at casualty_Chris. You can find the rest of the Kulturecast episodes over at kulturecast.com. We're also on all podcatchers, both iOS and Android. Over on kulturecast.com, you'll find links over to our Patreon where you can kick a couple dollars our way. Every little bit helps us keep the lights on or off, depending on if we're watching a movie. donors get access to unreleased episodes. And if you give us, a couple dollars and you want to tell us what movie to watch, we've already watched Kuso, so we can't watch that again. Sorry, but we'll watch other stuff. I mean, that's an open invitation to ruin our days or mine, because I'm not going to try to rope a lot of people in, but it is what it is. Big thanks as always to _91 for Thunderous, which is the intro outro for the Kulturecast, and we'll catch you on the next episode.